Hi, and welcome to Be Your Own Best Coach Conversations, where you can learn to accelerate your career with self-leadership skills and habits. I'm Glen Lubbert, one of the co-founders of Be Your Own Best Coach, a 5-week group coaching program. Once again, I'm here with my colleague and fellow co-founder, Dr. Deborah Teplow. Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
So today we are joined by one of our Be Your Own Best Coach alumni, Mark Hiemenz. Mark helps individuals, teams, and organizations be their best through self-awareness and relationship-building education, resources, and tools to move them clearly forward with shared goals and objectives, clear communications, and a unified path toward success. Today, he's here to talk to us about his experience as a participant in Be Your Own Best Coach, the impact it's had on his life, and the power of self-talk. Welcome, Mark, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Hi, Glenn. Hi, Deborah.
So, Mark, let's start off by just telling us a little bit about self-talk, what it is and how Be Your Own Best Coach helped you better manage it.
Well, I think of self-talk as that sort of that inner voice, the voice inside our head. It's a narrative that is always going on, and sometimes we're aware of it, and sometimes we're not so aware of it. But whether or not we're aware of it, it's happening, and it's making a big difference on what we're doing, what our actions and behavior is. So, by making myself aware of my self-talk and using the tools and what I learned in Be Your Own Best Coach, I can actually change my self-talk and be more effective.
Cool. So, Mark, you did mention tools that you learned. Could you describe that?
Sure. There are actually a wonderful amount of tools, and what really hit me is sort of in general, sort of the technique around pausing, and reframing things and practicing. So in addition to the tools, it's kind of what to do with them. When I think of the tools, I think especially of one that was really helpful was learning what the difference is between a fixed and a growth mindset, and using the tools that I learned to take something where I might have a fixed mindset, which can be really limiting, and change that pretty simply, often with the addition of a word or two to a growth mindset.
Hmm. And you mentioned pausing, practicing, and reframing. Is that part of the growth mindset that you're talking about?
I hope it is. I mean, I think it is. I think anytime I'm learning something, that's the way that I can learn something, is to take it in and then spend that time to think about what it means. That's maybe what the pause is. And and then the reframing is to say, okay, so what does this mean? And then put it into practice. Like everything else, practice helps.
Practice.
Perfect.
Yeah, the practice piece is key.
Right, or I say practice makes better. So, Mark, what was your experience with Be Your Own Best Coach in terms of practicing?
I was thinking there's actually a couple of things, and that I do to practice. One is that I can go back to the sessions that we had during the course and look at the different tools we had in the course, and I can reuse them, which is always really nice. And the other thing about practice is, well, the great thing about practice in my mind is after I practice something a few times, it becomes sort of second nature. So I don't have to practice it, and it opens me up to practice something else.
Mhm. Cool. And so now that you've been practicing that self-talk and noticing its change, incorporating that self-talk into growth mindset, what difference has changing your self-talk made for you?
I think it's made me calmer and happier, and I like both of those things.
And what if other people notice that tells them that you're calmer and happier?
Interestingly, I think people may see me as calm and steady on the outside, and sometimes I'm sort of churning on the inside, maybe sometimes because of the self-talk. So I think people may not see me as being different as far as being calmer, because I think I already sort of have that persona. What I think people see me as, which I think is really helpful, is more effective.
Can you say a little bit more about that? More effective? How would they notice? How do you notice you're more effective? How do they notice that?
I think I'm more effective in that I have ways both in my own self-talk, and then as I am working with others, and I by working I mean it can be work, it can also be my personal relationships with others, to be able to have this vocabulary to help them understand what's going on in their head, and when we have a conversation, then we can sort of uncover things, and through that process, we can then get to what we want to do together. So that's where, having the tools and going through them, it may be a calm process, which is great. And what's especially great is going through that process then means we can jointly have the same sort of success on things. And that's what I mean by effectiveness.
Mhm. Cool. So when we talked a little bit before our conversation today, you described the process of learning about self-talk and practicing it and changing it. You described it as simple, but not easy. And of course, we'd love to hear more about that.
I think that simple and easy is a great distinction, that people can use in lots of things going on in their lives. And why I think the process is simple is because you've broken so many things down into digestible exercises and practices and tools. So from that standpoint, when I went through the exercises and when I continue to think of things now, it's not necessarily rocket science. It's actually being self-aware and continuing to put these things into practice. What may or may not be easy about things is the motivation, or the consistency in which I put them into practice. And so I'm sure you've both heard the whole idea of skill and will. So the skill comes a lot from the practices and the tools. The will is, how do I use them? What do I do to continue to put them into practice, to continue to make myself better?
Mhm. Mhm. Cool. And we also talked after the simple but not easy. Well, let me ask you, are there specific things that in addition to that, the breaking it down into small, I'm going to add actionable pieces, are there other things that participating in Be Your Own Best Coach help you do in terms of simple and not easy, but maybe making it a little easier?
And I want to just add on to that, again, looking at the practicing part of the puzzle there, that's really, I think that what's most intriguing here is, how is the practicing working in Be Your Own Best Coach, and then afterwards too, that the practicing, how is that playing out?
I think the practicing is something that I have sort of in sort of the back of my brain after learning something, and as I said, I can go back and look at some of the practices, the actionable practices that you talked about, Deborah. And what's great is sometimes when I go back, I go, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. I didn't even realize that I learned this, and it's become part of my everyday practice without thinking about things. So that's that's the fun part of it. And fun answers, I think, your question, Deborah, during the course. You called it the F word a lot, and w- whenever anything is fun, and we can sometimes make it fun, it's going to be a lot more pleasurable to continue to practice it. And who doesn't want to have fun, and who doesn't want to be fun when we're interacting with others?
Oh, that's nice. Not only have fun, but be fun. I like that. I'm going to try and remember that. Um, let's talk about the impact of your managing your self-talk better. How is that shaping your journey, or how does it guide you on your path now?
Um, I think that what it really does is kind of helps me um, realize that, a journey, as people say, is often as important as the destination. And it helps me to enjoy myself along the journey. And I was thinking about self-talk, and maybe this is ironic, but as I practice positive self-talk, I think I can be more outward faced. And so then I can interact with others along the journey. And part of the reason for that is positive self-talk, I think, manifests itself into positive interactions with others. And I think others would say it's more enjoyable to be with somebody who's enjoying the journey, noticing things along the journey, stopping and smelling the roses along the journey.
Mm.
I love that. And within the actual course, in the 5-week course, how did that manifest itself with the other students and your interactions?
Well, something that I did during the course, and I have done since, is one of the other members of my cohort and I started really becoming practice partners on things, and we talked somewhat during the course, but immediately after the course, we set weekly meetings, and we've actually gone on some weeks to have 2 meetings and to continue the conversation, and not just the conversation that we are practicing on from Be Your Own Best Coach. But as I said, some of those things that now are already integrated into how we think. And so taking it, I think, to the next level. And what's really fun is I might say that we can each be each other's best coach at times. And it's a give and take.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
wonderful.
So it's a kind of a ripple effect from you as your own best coach to you as other people's best coach.
And other people to help me as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, Mark, journaling was included as part of the Be Your Own Best Coach curriculum and strategy, technique, method, etc. How did the journaling figure in to your practicing your self-talk? And and what were even the benefits of that journaling to help you change your self-talk?
I think the biggest thing for me about the journaling is it helped me take my thoughts and put it on paper to make them conscious. So it helped me become aware of them and write it down. And I'm the kind of person who has never been a journaler, and I have been through programs before where journaling was part of the program, and I may have done that during the program, and then kind of fell back on my habits. What I loved about the journaling in Be Your Own Best Coach is, number one, it was you had templates for every day for us to fill out to help us with the journaling. It wasn't about the amount of journaling. It wasn't about having to do a certain thing. It was journaling in a way that was looking at how was the day and what can I do to tee up tomorrow to be better.
The journaling is my favorite part of our program, the journaling exercises.
It's fun to go back and look at my journals, by the way, as well.
Oh, that's a good recommendation for us for our next cohort and
What,
for
what,
alumni revisiting.
what did you
the
what did you
journal.
find interesting when you revisit it?
I think what I find the most interesting is I look at some of the things, and sometimes they're things large and small, which I think you also say it doesn't have to be something huge. I go back and kind of relive some of the things that made me happy that I wrote down that day, and both it gives me sort of a warm feeling to go back to that, and it also gives me an opportunity to say, oh, I can relive that. I can do something similar to what made me feel happy and effective that day. I can do that today or tomorrow as well.
Um, and Mark, I had a question. That's so lovely. First of all, that's just awesome. I had a question. When we talked earlier about self-talk, you used the word vaccinate. And so I wondered how managing your self-talk, shifting that from, the negative self-talk to positive, how does that vaccinate you? Tell us about that.
Well, I love metaphors, and when I thought of the idea of vaccination, and unfortunately, in some ways, a lot of people know about vaccination more than they probably did 15 months ago. Um, the parts about vaccination, why I think it's a good metaphor, is vaccination gives us resistance to something that may be external. And in the case of medicine, it may be a virus or something. In the case of self-talk, it gives us resistance to some of that negative self-talk, or resistance when something happens where I might automatically skew a little bit more towards the negative and the positive. So when I have learned processes to recognize negative self-talk and move it to positive, I've got that built into me. I've got that somehow that was a shot that I got from a positive shot from the course to be able um, to recognize when things come, change them, and like the medical vaccination, if something does happen that might be negative, I may have a quicker recovery from a
Mm,
negative reaction.
Well,
yeah.
excellent. So, is there anything else you wanted to add about any insights or skills that you gained from being your best coach that might fall into the simple but not easy category?
Something that I really liked in the framework of the course was when you talked about the stages of making changes, the 5 stages: the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. And it's a to me a simple concept, and to me, especially when I want to go from action to maintenance, I find it's often not easy. I realize that I can kind of go through, and you can think of it as a continuum. And often think of it almost as steps too, that each of them is sort of building on the others. And I get to the fifth step and I kind of stumble and fall back a little bit. And so on that kind of angle, it's not always easy. That being said, I know that I've reached the fourth of the fifth stages, and I'm building towards the fifth. And if I fall back 1 or 2 steps, I know how to get back up to that penultimate step to move towards maintenance, and say, okay, it's the breakthrough for me. For me, the breakthrough is that very last step, and it's a simple process, but it's not always easy. But I've got a process to follow to work on it. And as I was talking about, the challenging part is my motivation and my consistency. I've got the tools to make it happen. I need to reach from within to actually make it happen.
Mm.
That's. Go ahead, Deborah.
I was going to say, and so how does that self-talk figure in to help you move through those stages of change, especially between that action and maintenance? Wondering about that.
I in things that have happened since I actually went through the course, I have done what I would consider quite well on some goals that I have, and again reach the action stage, and maybe I don't want to use real negative language, but maybe slipped up. I don't want to sound too hard on myself. My self-talk, I think, is not bad me. I've slipped up and I've moved back. My talk is, I made this happen. I can make it happen again, and I can work on it to be consistent, and I can make it part of who I am, because I really believe I can do this.
Ah, that's fantastic. I think, and this is a great place for us to wrap up around self-talk. So thank you, Mark, and thank you, Deborah. I also want to thank everyone for listening. And now we want to hear from you. How will you use what you just heard today? Please leave a comment below. And while you're down there, feel free to comment on other people's comments. That's how we generate a community of helpful ideas and suggestions. I also want to let everyone know to check out beyourownbestcoach.com, where you can find out more information about our 5-week group coaching program. Listeners of Be Your Own Best Coach Conversations can take a 10% off the enrollment cost by using the keyword conversations. Thanks again for listening, and stay well.